Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Aila Health's Patient Spotlight series. I am here today with Sophia Vicari, who is the founder of the Princess Promise, which she founded in 2017, shortly after diagnosis of ulcerative colitis, to help eradicate IBD's stinky stigma. And she's overcome her own struggles with reclaiming dignity after diagnosis and now seeks to help others in the IBD community, sharing her story so that other people can feel like they can survive, not just survive, but also thrive. So thank you so much for being here, Sophia.
Thank you for having me.
And
apparently my dog as well. Thank you for having both of us.
speaking of stinky stigma, I hear I hear a little stinky in the background. So we'll welcome her.
And she was named before, like years before I ever got sick. So, I mean, her name is perfect to be the Princess Promise's mascot. Call it foreshadowing, call it destiny. I don't know, but meant to be, 100% meant to be.
I love that so much. So Sophia, would you maybe just give us a little bit of a sense of what your journey has been like?
Yeah, so let's start at the very beginning. As you know, Julie Andrews sang. I had symptoms fall semester junior year of college, of undergrad, which is always fun because I was also an honor student and I was a dance minor, so I was taking a tap dancing class that semester. And, like all of the things on my plate, the last thing I needed was health problems, especially of this nature. I lived in a suite with about 4 other women, and we had one bathroom. So the bathroom had 2 toilet stalls and a shower stall. So there could be a suite full of people in the room at once if that just happened. So it was very uncomfortable. And as blunt as I am about menstruation and other parts of my life, at that point, I was not very forthcoming with bowel knowledge. So every time I had problems, I really struggled with the whole embarrassment about it, the shame, feeling like I had no dignity. It was really bad. And my diagnosis process took place largely over Thanksgiving break and then winter break because I went to school 2 hours away. So I had to make hay while the sun shined while I was home and had a car that I could borrow and could get to doctor's appointments and things. And I ended up having a colonoscopy 2 days after Christmas. And I got my diagnosis. The doctor said ulcerative colitis hands down. He said, don't worry, it's manageable, which really ticked me off because at 20, I had worked my butt off all my life to have an awesome life, not a manageable life. I just felt like that word had a very negative connotation. And I understand doctors are desensitized to these kinds of things because they say things all the time. And I've met amazing doctors. I've interviewed them for my blog. I have an amazing doctor that I see, but I felt like in that moment that was an issue. And so that added to the mental health stressors that come with a physical health diagnosis. And I had to take prednisone, which I already talk a lot, and my poor family. I mean, and at that point I was 128 pounds on 45 milligrams of prednisone, tapering 5 a week. So I exhausted myself. And they also wanted me to take steroid enemas, which I fought tooth and nail because I was like, I'm a princess, I'm a lady, I don't stick enemas up my butt. And then I realized how stupid that was to put my pride above my health. And that was one of the reasons I founded the Princess Promise, because I was like, if I feel this way, surely there are other young women out there who also feel this way. And then as I was tapering off the prednisone, I was able to stop the enemas when I went back to school because they're like, we're not going to make you do this in a dorm when you still have a roommate and everything. I started my maintenance med, which is Entyvio. I get infusions of Entyvio every 8 weeks. I ended up switching doctors to someone closer to me because we had to go over the bridge to Philly a lot in the early days of diagnosis. So we found someone in South Jersey. She is a dream. And then my infusion nurse has become my BFF. I love her so much. She's really good at what she does, holes in one all the time. And we hang out outside of appointments. So I feel very blessed. I was really at a low point there. And since owning my narrative, controlling my narrative, and realizing that being a princess has more than one definition. I've been able to really climb back to be my best self, even though my body likes to not work.
There's so many important things in what you would just, touched on there. I'm just, it's incredible to hear your story, and then also, your own, process of working through, what does that mean for you? And then turning that also outwards and saying, hey, if I'm feeling this way about like an enema and, being a young woman and, like I'm not alone in feeling like that probably. And, so what can be done about that? So that feels really inspiring. And I'm just, I'm curious if you might be able to speak a little bit to the, that process of, for someone who might be listening in maybe at the beginning of their, diagnosis journey, what were some things that you were able to do to help you really cope with and kind of process through this, what is a really difficult diagnosis?
Well, I mean, first, I should say my running joke was I gave credit to the winning combination of Jesus and prednisone because I couldn't sit still and I couldn't mope. I definitely feel that in those early days, I turned to toxic positivity, which is when you're like, everything's fine and great despite awfulness. You don't have to do that. I think that is just as harmful as just sitting and moping. So what I would say is if you're a person of any faith and you're wrestling with that. I mean, I was the kid that was in Sunday school all the time. I'm a certified lay servant in my United Methodist denomination. Like I check boxes, I do the things. I was like, why me? Why is this happening to me? If you're wrestling with that, talk to a knowledgeable mentor or a clergy person that you trust and wrestle with that. I mean, personally, I feel God can handle it. He made me. Clearly he can handle anything. So that would be one thing, to focus on your spiritual health, to focus on your mental health. I would say allow yourself time to grieve. You're allowed to be upset. Take the weekend, cry it out, watch some Hallmark movies, eat some ice cream or dairy-free ice cream, like whatever your body can handle, and just let it out. I found it worse when people said, oh, well, it could be worse, trying to help me. I'd rather them say, well, this stinks, because yeah, it does. I want you to acknowledge that I'm not having fun right now. So allow yourself to grieve, but don't stay there. Don't stay in the pit. Go in the pit, have a weekend, have a sleepover, and then wake up on Monday morning ready to roll. And then for physical health, I would say keep open lines of communication with your medical care professionals. I did that, and my nurse practitioner at the time, she was like, okay, stay off the internet unless it's the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation, because you're going to scare yourself. And it was true. I had joined all these online support groups on Facebook, and I was reading everyone's horror stories, and I hadn't yet grasped the concept that each person's case of IBD is as unique as they are. So just because this is happening to one person does not mean it's going to happen to me. And so until I could really separate my journey from your journey, I really needed to take that step back. And I started the Princess Promise because I felt like there was a void of positive content around IBD, because when you're hyper focused on something, that's all you see, right? Like when you're looking for yellow cars, that's all you see. So when I was depressed about my condition, all I saw was people posting bad stuff. Since then, I realized I am so not original. There's Own Your Crohn's, there's About IBD, there's Girls with Guts, there's Killing It with Crohn's, there's so many other, Better Bellies by Molly. Like I have so many blogger friends now. Oh, Double Bagging It, love them. So there's so many people out there that are sharing their story, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good, but they're still out there living, they're still getting through it, they're striving to get their disease under control. And so you can definitely utilize other people's stories as a resource to help the conversation with your doctor. Don't say, oh, well, this happened to the Princess Promise, so it's going to happen to me. Like, I don't know. I hope everyone gets a treatment that works as well as mine. And if your treatment isn't working as well as mine, go to your doctor and say, look, this person is thriving because their treatment works. I don't feel like mine is working as well as theirs. What can we do? So it's all about how you use those tools at your disposal to better your spiritual, mental, and physical health.
And so it really sounds like, part of this process for you too is empowering, people to be able to step into, being an advocate for their own care and their own health, and really embodying this, this truth that, yes, there's this diagnosis of, IBD, but there's a lot of individuality that comes in that, so what can you do to really advocate for yourself when, when you go into the doctor's office? And yeah.
I mean, I did not want to be an advocate for myself. I'm going to be honest. I mean, the whole like depression thing, right? I was like, I picked the communication major because I don't like science. I don't want to be a scientist. I don't want to be an expert. Like I said, I had honors, I had dance, I had all of these things in my life. I was like, I don't have time or the will to add subject matter expert of a whole other thing on my plate. I just don't have that energy. And then I quickly learned, I mean, it comes with the territory. Like once I flipped my switch and I was able to turn the pain into purpose. I can't take credit for that line, but once I turned pain into purpose, and I was like, oh, I have to learn this to help other people. But I do think even if you're not interested in the science behind it, even if you're not, just little ways of learning things and advocating for yourself can help. I keep notes in my phone sometimes. If I have a long stretch between doctor visits and I have questions that aren't emergencies, I leave the notes in my phone so that I can be like, all right, can we cover X, Y, and Z? I started interviewing doctors on the Princess Promise because, like I said, I didn't go to med school, but they did. And so if you're embarrassed to ask a question, send it to me and I'll ask my doctor friends. I have so many amazing doctor friends, and like Fitwit MD and Dr. Frankel, Dr. Ehrlich, Dr. Shivashankar. Like I've interviewed a bunch of people. And so I'm like, all right, well, if you're embarrassed, I have no dignity left. I don't mind asking people about bowels on the internet. What do I have to lose? So, and I say these are meant to spark the conversation with your doctor, not replace it. So you don't have to be an expert in all things at all times, but I do recommend if there's an area that you want to know more about, you see what other people are saying, and then bring that to your doctor. Like let your doctor be the final word or your second opinion or whatever. Because Dr. Google is not always trustworthy. So you don't have to be an expert, but for things that you are interested in, for sure, bring that to your doctor. I mean, it's their job to help you. And being more knowledgeable up here can help when things go wrong down there.
Yeah, not to sound cliche, but knowledge is power, right? And that's right. True when, whether it's knowledge of the science and the anatomy that, behind the condition, or if it's just knowledge of hearing and seeing other people's stories, and just knowing that there are other experiences from other people who might be going through something similar or maybe something a little bit different.
And it might help you in conversations with loved ones who just don't get it. I get it. I understand. Okay, I'm on this medicine for life because even though it manifests in my gut, the root problem is my immune system. So let's attack the source. Some people may not get that when you say, oh, I have inflammatory bowel disease. They're like, okay, so it's a problem with your bowel. So why are you eating a cheeseburger? It's like, no. Don't take away my cheeseburgers. Thank you. So having more knowledge can help you have those constructive conversations and help those around you become more aware and more knowledgeable about the disease.
And that's a whole other space, the battle, right? Just, internally with a diagnosis, you're going through this whole process of trying to understand and learn what this is like, but then there's also these relationships you have in your life of helping other people understand what you're going through too. And strengthening those relationships to have a support system. And because right, it's human condition. Like I'm not going to understand your struggle, and it might be well-intentioned, that intent might be out of love and compassion, but really the impact can be one that is harmful.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel that it is important to have patience with people. Like you can tell when people are well-intentioned, right? Like if a family member who loves you says, oh, well, at least it's not cancer. Like, that that's coming from a place of love. They're not trying to invalidate your struggles. They're just trying to make it better. And no one can make it better, right? Like the doctor might be able to with medicine or whatever, but like you've got to sit with that diagnosis and you've got to sit with all that entails. So I recommend patience, which is so hard on prednisone, isn't it? All emotions are hard on prednisone, but definitely don't push people away because you're like, how dare you say that? And you're like, oh, yes, but my battle is still valid. I'm still in pain. And I would rather you just agree that it stinks. Because some people don't think that they're allowed to say that because they think it would make it worse. Like, why would I tell you that this is awful? You already know that. For me personally, I found it validating. Someone else might not. I don't know. Everybody's different. Everybody's IBD is different. And it's all about finding what works for you and your loved ones.
Yes. Wow. Such truth in that. And, so I'm just curious how do you balance that? How do you balance, what part of your experience to share with other people, and, which parts to speak to as a way of, even validating your own experience.
Yeah, I mean, I like to tell people every battle is valid. My boss has a great saying. She says it's not the Calamity Olympics, and we don't have to one up each other. You can say, there's a lot online about, oh, don't tell me your tummy hurts like my tummy hurts because I have IBD. It's like, okay, you know what? For that person, that stomach ache might really be bad, especially because it's out of the blue. I'm used to stomach ache sometimes, so I'm like, ugh. But for them, it might be debilitating. You don't know. So it's great when loved ones and people in our lives respect the fact that what we have is different. And and it's also, I believe, important for us to respect the fact that like other people have bowel issues too. They may not be the same bowel issues. It might not be the same level or the same cause or effect or whatnot. But let's all just, oh my gosh, let's all just support each other. Okay. Bowels are tricky. Bowels are bothersome and bowels smell. Okay. We all have them. We all deal with them. Let's just do, like I say with double bagging it, everybody poops, right? I poop out of my butt. They poop into bags, but pooping is happening. Like we all go through things. So let's just be kind to one another. Sometimes, like I said, patience is hard because of prednisone and other things in life. But I think the more that we can have conversations around body functions, the more normalized it will become. And perhaps people will seek help sooner or they won't be ashamed. I mean, don't get me wrong. I talk a high game, but when I clog the toilet at the office, I asked my boss to fill out the maintenance ticket so they don't know it was me. Like if I filled out the maintenance ticket yesterday and I have them fill it out today because I used too much toilet paper, I'm like, hey, would you mind? So that they don't know it was me, and she's got my back. But in theory, right? Practice is always different than theory in a lot of things. But in theory, let's all just try to figure out our bowels together. I mean, let's all just respect that we all have issues and bowels stink. And it's just something we've got to live with.
I love that. And, I think it's also really highlighting the importance of having people in your life that, can be a support to say, that
fill out a maintenance ticket.
Yeah, fill out the maintenance ticket and, so that you do feel like, okay, I do have some people in my life that have my back, and you maybe don't have that intimate knowledge of what I'm going through, because, maybe that person doesn't have Crohn's, colitis, doesn't suffer from IBD, but yeah, they see me as, someone who's really experiencing something real and, will support me in that.
What I have found has been amazing is I love it when people send me pictures of poop emoji products or send me the poop emoji product. Like South Jersey Observer one time sent me poop emoji gloves, and it warmed my heart because it means my job, I'm doing my job well. I don't want to say my job here is done, but when people see poop emojis and think of me, that makes me so happy. And 5 years ago, before I was diagnosed, I never would have said that because I would have been very offended. But now I wear it as a badge of honor, right? And it warms my heart too when people text me, sometimes people out of the blue, like that one classmate from that one class so long ago, and they're like, hey, I'm having this issue. Can I ask you about it? And I mean, I did that to that one classmate from that, there was someone on my campus who I knew had Crohn's. And when I was having symptoms, I'm like, hey, Dr. Google says it could be this. I reached out. And so the fact that people know they can come to me and talk about this super intimate, embarrassing thing, is great because, like I said, the more we could normalize conversation, I'm not saying you have to bring it up at the dinner table unless you're with other IBD people with IBD because they probably might not care. But, we should be able to talk about it and say, hey, I've been having some issues. Anyone have any advice or anyone have a good doctor in the area? It's just the way our bodies work or don't work. No shame in the poop game.
Yeah, just because we might not be talking about it doesn't mean that it's not there and happening.
Right.
So,
Yes.
so
Women poop. Fun fact. We poop a lot.
wow. Yeah,
Especially around the period.
So yeah, in our remaining moments here, maybe if you would care to just impart any remaining words of wisdom or advice to someone who might be listening and feeling like, their IBD battle is overwhelming, or just not really sure what to do.
Yeah, I would say rest assured that your battle is valid, whether you're like me and you got diagnosed and on the correct treatment plan relatively quickly, or whether you've been struggling for 10 years to find something that works. Just because your battles are different does not mean that they're not valid. So you are allowed to say, I'm struggling with IBD, even if you found your medicine right away. Give yourself time to grieve. Like I said earlier, toxic positivity is not necessarily better. And keep the open lines of communication with your medical care team, because they've heard it all, they've seen it all, they've smelled it all. So it's best to just bring it up, because you never know. I've gotten actually a couple as needed medication prescriptions just because I happened to mention the struggle I was having. And my doctor's like, oh, well, I can give you something for that. No, I did not know, or I would have brought it up a year ago. So just keep those lines open and control your narrative. If someone was like, oh man, who made that bathroom smell down the hall? Like, oh, that's nothing. You should smell it when I'm colonoscopy prepping. Like, own it. Control your narrative, because people will get their cues from you. So show them that there's nothing to be ashamed of.
I love that. Thank you so much, Sophia. And
For
I'll
having me.
have a link to the Princess Promise also below for anyone interested in, checking out what's there and maybe finding support there as well. And just really want to thank you for taking the time to chat with us. And it's been a really wonderful time.
Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. Thanks to, I believe, the Comical Colon for shouting out this opportunity. And thank you all for listening to the melodious sounds of Stinky barking. She's now napping now that the interview's over, just so you're aware.
Of course, it's the way of the universe, I think.
Yes, but when you're 16, you can do whatever you want, so.